never knew that a kid like me could take his mic around the world and flash the big ass ditty and rock the masses from Madrid to Calabasas.
What's up, you guys? FSC, Festech Speed and Custom Shop. Well, I'm sorry, it ain't too much speed, it ain't too much custom. Eventually it will be, but not this video. But be thankful. It's late January, it's a blizzard outside, and, well, yeah, I'm working. It's really not a blizzard, but that's what the news is saying. Either way, also be thankful. The heater's turned off. You can hear me now. With that being said, we're going to work on a 1998 Oldsmobile that my girlfriend Jen usually drives. What's wrong with it? Well, it had one problem, but then yesterday it decided it's going to have two problems. First problem was simple. Goes back to the reason why I'm driving my father's Ford Expedition. I put my 1990 Cadillac back together and the engine went out, lost a rod bearing in it. We did actually try to put a new bearing in it, and the connecting rod is no longer round, it's more oval. It took the new rod bearing out, and the engine's not destroyed, it's just knocking, so that's the end of that. That's why I'm in the Expedition. This was the only car we had running that I could drive in the winter, because obviously my Impala with the lowrider wheels, you don't want to drive in the snow, and we do live in Wisconsin. So with that being said, this thing decided to give me some trouble. It's been leaking some antifreeze. That was okay, I could deal with that, just keep adding it, not a big deal. Now she decided she's going to have a fuel leak. Upon further inspection yesterday, me and my son opened up the hood, took the top of the engine off, that little plastic cover I mean, and sure enough, the forward fuel rail had a lot of fuel and antifreeze laying right on the intake. And it was sitting there smoldering because the engine was running for a while, and gasoline, if you spill it on a hot engine, it won't ignite, it'll just sizzle away. So with that being said, obviously with a bad fuel leak, that ain't good. So we're gonna go ahead and take this thing apart, figure out, okay, why is it leaking water? Why is it leaking fuel? By the way, this car has 281,000 miles on it. The heads have never been off the engine's never been rebuilt, the oil pan's never been off the bottom. 281,000. Believe it or not, the first approximately 240,000 miles were done when this was my father's car in New Jersey in all the stop-and-go traffic. Let me tell you, if you owned one of these Oldsmobiles, you got your value for your buck. Believe me on that. This car still runs strong, still's pretty quick for a factory V6, but it's got a lot of miles. Either way, we intend on keeping it going. We're going to do some work on this car here eventually. So we're going to keep it going. But for right now, we got to get her back going, stop the fuel leak, stop the water leak, and see if we can squeeze some more mileage out of it before we go ahead and redo it all together and customize it. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead and opened up the hood, and all we have here is this plastic cover over the engine. Doesn't really do anything. Just makes it look pretty. Because who wants to look at an engine, right? Right here's your fuel rail. You got one injector here, another here, and another here. And it was all under here that was loaded with fuel and water. Also right around here, underneath the distribution modules here, is where the water leak is. There's a lot of steam coming under here to the point where it's also getting my belt wet and marking it up a little bit. I've got the car running. Let's see what I can show you here. I cleaned up all the water that was in this hole, in here, and then also in there. All the water out. Now, as soon as I started it, I found the gasket for the thermostat housing right here leaking. Hopefully it'll come in. There we go. I found the gasket for the thermostat housing leaking. So that's the water leak. Here's the problem. This injector right here, right under here, was all full of gas yesterday when it was really cold as we were sitting outside. Now, it just sits there, not leaking gas. But I noticed this. Watch and listen when I increase the RPM. Put the RPM down, and the smoke almost completely goes away. It's originating at that injector. Raise it up again. Now bear in mind, there are no engine fans that's running. They're off. It's just been sitting here. So for whatever reason, when I raise the RPM up, the smoldering smoke comes off of the injector. By the way, it doesn't smell sweet like antifreeze either. I think that injector's leaking or the new seals. Either way, with 281,000 miles on her, I'm pretty sure it's time for injectors. And obviously thermostat and gasket, because that's where the water leak's coming from. First we're going to disconnect the battery. And drop the negative terminal off as my heater decides to turn on. It's like 0 degrees outside, so we're not turning the heater off for the sound quality. Just gonna have to learn to love the noise of the heater. We actually made a special tool to take the ignition leads off of the back of the engine. But since we don't really need to do that, I'm just gonna take them. Now they're already labeled. This is number 6. This is number 2. And then number 5. Take them right off the ignition coils. And just lay them back there. Anything that covers up the fuel rails from here, up, over, and down. Now this fuel rail does not come apart. It looks like it comes out as one unit. Usually, like on my Cadillac, which is the V8, there's a crossover and there's O-rings on each side. This one is not that case. This one is completely solid. I just broke that line. You have to remind, all this stuff is very fragile, so this is going to have to be a vacuum hose now, not this any longer. That piece cracked. So we'll just deal with that. Plug attached to the fuel rail itself. So we're just going to peel it off to the side. The injector clips come out by simply depressing this with your finger, and it pries open the side tabs, and then you just pull them off. Obviously you have to put them back in the same one because it has to be in the right firing order. But if you basically don't take the whole harness out, there's really only one way it could go back together unless you really take the harness apart. The 3 injectors are now electrically taken apart. Trying to get the last fuel injector. Next I have to take off the fuel lines. The feed and the return, here and here. There shouldn't be any fuel pressure. Under here is a Schrader valve. That's where you would attach a fuel pressure gauge if you're checking to see if your fuel pump is working properly or how much rail pressure you have. It's also a good bleed off. Otherwise, you take that line off, you could get fuel spray right in your eyes. Note one size is bigger than the other. All I'm doing with the needle nose is squeezing these two together. Once these squeeze in, this releases these tabs out of the holes on this side of these holes right here. I don't know if you can see them. Point the tool right through. And that's how they hold on. There's an O-ring in here. Actually, the O-ring is on the inside of the line. The O-ring is on the inside of the tubing, and that's what seals the fuel from leaking out. Now the fuel rail will be ready to take out. Once I take these bolts out, there's a nut, there's a nut here, here, Now I'm taking the clips off of the injectors themselves, off of the fuel rail. Almost dropped it. That's the 3 in the front. The other ones we'll do off camera. You'll never be able to see it anyway. All 6 clips are off all 6 injectors. Now the fuel rail should lift off. It'll be fairly snug, but it should come off without too much arguing and fuss. The injectors came out of the engine, not out of the rail. That's funny. It appears the backside did the same. Oh, I missed a wire attached to that right there. Right there, I missed that. There's a wire loom attached right to the base right there. So now we have all 3 fuel injectors sitting right here on the table. This is the one here that was failing. They just simply pull out now that I have the clips off, although obviously you can see they will fight you. We're replacing all 6. That seems to work better than brute force. Wiggle them out. So here we have the empty fuel rail, no injectors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this one was the one that actually failed. Now if I had my way about me, I would just go to the store and buy 6 injectors. Problem is, I checked around. Automotive Supply, Napa, even O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Advance. All these guys, no one has 6 injectors, and nobody has them at a decent price. 2 places I looked online were Summit Racing. Believe it or not, because this is the 3.8 liter V6, and it is the same block that was in the world famous Buick Grand National, these injectors are fairly common. However, depending on where you go to get them, they are expensive. I was thinking for maybe in a performance market, I might get a better price. I've seen anywhere local merch here between Napa, Federated, all those guys I mentioned before. I've seen anywhere between $74 and $109 each injector. In the end, I wound up going with Rock Auto. Rock Auto has AC Delcos for 90, I think 94 each. Remans for like 24 bucks. And I'm like, I don't know. Plus, I have to ship these back to get my core charge back. So rather than mess with that, I went with brand new. Then I went with, what I wanted to do was go with a company called Standard. They had brand new ones for $36 each, plus shipping. And being the fact that Jen needs a car and I'm eventually going to have to go back on the road for another week of trucking here shortly, since I haven't trucked in a couple weeks, we're going to need to get this car back to Jen within reasonable time. So I paid the extra $10 to get them shipped. They should arrive here tomorrow. So for the time being today, I gotta go get some stuff for my son's pickup truck, and I need to get the thermostat and gasket because remember, we still have the water leak to contend with on this. So I'll go ahead and get those parts right now. So while we're already working on the fuel system, I'm gonna go ahead and change out the fuel filter. Hopefully that'll break free, as the lines are pretty rusty. Now I did treat it with some PB Blaster. Hopefully that'll break it loose. Gasket was bad. There's a thermostat under there. You take your thermostat, you put this little O-ring rubber seal around the thermostat like so. There's a groove, should have showed it to you. There's a groove on the inside. Should see it right there. It just sits right on that flange. And then you put the thermostat right in that housing you saw me clean up. A product I like to use is gasket shellac. Again, it's more of a preference thing. If Matthew will hand me the thermostat with the ring on it. Thank you. That sits right in there. Perfect. There's a gasket that goes over that and right underneath your water neck. You're not even a ratchet. My parts have finally arrived. I ordered them via Rock Auto. I've already put 3 of the injectors in the rail, as you can see, and I'm just unpackaging and opening the last 3 and going ahead and installing them now. Just putting a little bit of lubricant on the seal, the O-ring. It went pretty easy compared to the way it came out. By the way, this job should have been done days ago. Rock Auto apparently shipped this stuff out of Azusa, California, and the airplane either couldn't land or whatever the problem was here locally in Appleton. So last night I drove to Appleton to pick them up. Of course, Rock Auto is going to keep the extra 20 bucks that I paid for expedited shipping. Today is Friday. It was supposed to arrive on Wednesday. FedEx had them since Thursday. FedEx had them Wednesday night and didn't check them in until like pretty much Wednesday night at 11 o'clock. And then it didn't go out on the Thursday truck. I don't even know if the Thursday truck went out. I went to the airport and picked them up myself personally. That's how I got them. Either way, they're here now. We had very bad weather. We had like literally one morning it was 24 below zero. So we had that big scary polar vortex, you know, winter in Wisconsin. Either way, that's what had gone down. There we are. 6 brand new injectors in the old fuel rail. I'm just ready to put it in the car. Let's get and get at it. I don't know if I showed this effectively to you or not. The rail sits in the car exactly like this, with the injectors facing downward like so. These tips from the O-ring down go into the intake manifold. You can see one hole there. That's the one that was leaking actually, right? Nope, sorry. This was the one that was leaking right here. One hole there, a hole there. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And of course in the back you've got them lined up in the back as well. That's where the injectors go. Push down each individual one with your thumb. That seats them in nice. I'll go ahead and show you. They're seated in beautifully now. The trick appears to be to push them in as a unit. Get them all down together. And then you can push them in with your thumb one at a time. Get them seated. You can't see the O-ring, it's down in the hole. Here's the next one. See, it's down in the hole all the way. Now note to self, do yourself a favor. I took the clips off of the car while the whole thing was in the car. You're better off putting the clips back on the bench when you put the injectors in the rail, not after you put the rail in the car. It'll save yourself a little bit of time. It's not impossible, just a little bit of pain in the neck. I already hooked up the back injectors. What I'm going to do is hook up the front injectors electrically here. All 6 fuel injectors are attached. Plug in anything else I may have unplugged. That was it. Just wet down the steel a little bit. Hands are still wet from the oil. That'll do. That one's connected. I just gotta make a little vacuum nipple for that to replace that little elbow I broke. There, perfect. She won't run without spark getting to the spark plug, so start routing that back over. Number 2, number 4, number 6. That's all set. Now the first thing I really want to do is go ahead and check the fuel pressure. I'm going to turn the ignition on, make sure that the pressure at the lines we just connected, make sure none of those O-rings are leaking. So we can turn the ignition on here. I heard the pump come on, and then I heard it turn off. Let's look. I see no noticeable leaks. Now we'll put water in it and fire it up. This is all the water that came out of the car. Water being Prestone Dexcool antifreeze 50-50 mix. This is what we run in this car. This is full strength. I have to mix this 50-50. I have more of it. What we're doing now is waiting for the thermostat that we replaced to open. Once it does, I have to open that bleeder valve and let the air out, because this point is higher than the top of the reservoir. You have to open the bleeder valve on these to let all the air out. But for the moment, we're waiting on the stat to actually open. If I can see the water level, it means we're good. Just have to wait for the engine to warm up. I'll get ahead and pop the bleeder once. Nada. Thermostat's closed. You'll know when it opens when that water level drops, and when this hose gets real warm. The water leak was pretty bad. I left this in the trunk, obviously from windshield deicer, but it's labeled Dexcool. Kept it in the trunk for when we were just leaking for a while. Too much. That's why we got paper towels. Need the air out. Looks like a solid line of water. That hose is definitely warm now. Let some more water out. Sorry, let more air out. There's your air, see it? Either that or the stat closed back up. I had to put the pressure cap on. I could fill it by the reservoir now. Straight water, no bubbles. Sounds like the injectors are working just fine. Fixed right up. Thank you for watching. Now you see how to change a set of 6 injectors on a 3.8 liter V6 engine in any GM car. This one particularly being a 1998 Oldsmobile Intrigue. With that being said, there's a reason I do these videos. There's no speed, there's no custom here, and I'll be honest with you, if I could put out a couple of how-to videos to help you guys out that maybe don't have the big garage or the big budget to build a big badass truck like you just seen, or other things that we do here, at least this way you kind of know that I'm here. Basically, I'm trying to get you people to come and check out my channel and see the other kind of stuff we do with custom cars, with the Ford Expedition, with other vehicles. We got the 64 Impala and so on. The stuff that we do, the automotive lifestyle. This is not just about my shop, it's about the automotive lifestyle. Hopefully you check this out. So if you found us on the how-to tip as far as how to go ahead and do these small jobs, so please go ahead and join the FSC crew either way. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Can check out FSCSpeedShop.com. You'll find out some merch we got. We got pin-up shirts. We got Cream Machine shirts. Cream Machine shirts come from the Bubba the Love Sponge show down in Florida. I built the Cream Machine's engine. That's why I'm making the shirts. What we are is a full-service custom shop here. If you can custom think it, we can custom build it. It could be big, tall, lifted 4x4s, low to the ground, two-wheel drive pickups, low riders, would be cars, trucks, you name it. We'll even do mini trucks. We do custom-built engines, purpose-built engines exactly for your needs. With that being said, I am Steve Festjek. This is FSC, Festjek Speed and Custom Shop. What else can I do for you?
I never knew that a kid like me could take his mic around the world and blast a big-ass ditty and rock the masses. From Madrid to Calabasas, Tijuana, Mexico, through the devils in Tokyo. Say they know me though, cause I be putting in work. Commit my life to rebirth, well respected cause that's my word. And I'm sure you heard about a new sound go round. She might have left my hood but she was born in my